All right. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Smiles relative. Yeah, all right. Bring some energy into the room. It is beautiful outside, blue sky in Vancouver. Yesterday was like pouring rain. So thank you for spending the next 20 minutes with us. We have an action-packed 20 minutes with tons of really great information and great industry experts joining us today. So you guys are in for a treat. Today, we are going to be talking about the mechanics of high-performance homes. So just kind of wondering who's in the crowd here. Who here, show of hands, is thinking of a renovation? Renovation. All right, awesome. How about new builds? New build? Okay, great. Well, we have a good variety of people in the room. No matter if you're looking at renovating or building new, there's going to be great information for you today. So just show of hands. Who here has, intro the panel. I'm so sorry. Okay, starting on my far left, we have Shaun St Amour with Clay Construction. Yay! And then we have Utoo Candar with Jamie Banfield Design. Yay! And then we have Eric Lee with VictorEric Design Group. Awesome. So let's start with what exactly is a high-performance home? Who here has heard of a high-performance home? Okay, well, if you haven't, that's okay. That's great that you guys have, but it is basically the wave of the future. It is coming very, very quickly, if not is already here. So first of all, let's start by just talking about what is a high-performance home exactly? Who wants to take that question?
A high-performance home, it's basically, to give you a more blunt definition, is just a home that aspires to be go above and beyond what's minimally required by municipal codes, to kind of just start you off. So like the idea is that we're moving towards a more energy efficient style of construction and design. So it's just the design that goes into the overall home itself.
And how is it different than like a normal home, or quote unquote what we would deem as a normal home?
So there's a lot of different factors like insulation, like mechanical systems, air tightness, things like that. So the standard codes have, I guess, a baseline. And so high performance homes just aim to go above and beyond. So that means, thicker walls, less air leakage, more efficient mechanical systems, things like that.
Yeah, just to touch on that, the benefits then that the clients get is a more comfortable, healthy, energy-efficient home that also then has less dust and less bugs, which are kind of the extra benefits that we don't always think of. And so homes that are more comfortable, that you can sit in there and enjoy the full temperature, is something that we all will enjoy very soon as we're moving up to step codes. So if you're not aware of the step code, we have energy codes that are moving the industry further ahead. In May, we're going to be introduced to step 3, and by 2032, we'll be at step 5, and we're looking forward to getting to those stages. And these individuals here that I'm with are actually building to those higher standards today. So you don't have to wait for 9 years to get to those higher codes. You can get that now with builders like us.
And I guess maybe with that, Shaun brings a great point. Right now, high performance is anything that's above code, but by the time step code mandates that everyone becomes that kind of step 5, well, then it was a high performance. There's also passive after that. So just as a simple fact, I guess, high performance is anything that's above code, but that code keeps on changing. Just keep that in mind. We're kind of pushing up to that level.
Absolutely. And that's a great point, Eric, because really what we're saying is that this high-performance home that we're talking about right now, it will affect every single person in this room that is doing a renovation or new build moving forward. So it's really good to get ahead of the curve and get educated, which is what you're doing right now. Awesome. So everybody, when they're sitting in their home, it's really beautiful to look at all your pretty finishes. And obviously we want to have a beautiful and very functional design to live in. But then there's always, all those weird like mechanics behind the home, like all your mechanical systems that most of the time it just stuck in a room that nobody goes in. So we're going to talk about why those systems are so important today. So I guess first and foremost, let's define what exactly is the mechanics. When we say the mechanics of a high performance home, what does that mean?
All right, well, I'm going to jump on this one because one of the things that we talk about the mechanics is the air barrier. So as we improve the performance of our homes, we're reducing the leaks in the envelope. And so we're talking about mechanics. We normally would think of mechanical devices that are heating and cooling the building as well as your hot water, where I also look at it as one of the easiest mechanical systems to put on your building is an air barrier. You get to enjoy the higher levels of comfort because you don't have as many leaks in your envelope. I'm sure all of you kind of grew up with that whole idea that, hey, hey, mom and dad, I'm cold. Can I turn up the heat? Like, no, put on a sweater. Well, again, you're putting on a sweater because you have so many leaks in your building. And so now we're looking at putting on sweaters on our homes, but we're also improving the efficiency of our envelope. And so the first kind of mechanical system is really looking at your envelope first and making sure that it's more robust before we actually deal with other mechanical systems that actually heat and cool ourselves as well as our water systems. So I'll start with the air barrier as the best mechanical system we can invest in.
Love it. And it's like a sweater for your home. I love that analogy because it makes it really simple and easy to understand.
Maybe I can just kind of paint a history of mechanical systems.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you had no air barrier, no mechanical system, you had this stone fireplace that heated the entire house, which is great. But your house leaked like crazy and you're cold when it's off. So then we got in and we added a bunch of mechanical systems, like really mechanical boilers, furnaces, all of that stuff. And that's great, but now we're throwing a bunch of money into equipment and we don't really design holistically. We're not looking at a better wall system, a better air barrier, like Shaun says. So it's still leaking energy. So now the new, evolution of home technology is high performance. And okay, instead of trying to pump in a lot of heat, what if we just designed that the house doesn't get overheated or doesn't lose the warm energy in the wintertime? And that's what we call the envelope design, which Shaun talked about. So if you do that better, you can cut down on mechanical costs. And that helps with the energy savings.
Yeah, and who doesn't love saving money, right?
And just kind of touching on the envelope. So Shaun talked about air barriers. So and with insulation as well, we're using more and more continuous insulation on the outside of the building to kind of to deal with that transfer of heat or cold air earlier on. But with those, systems, it creates a tighter shell, which means the air inside becomes a bit more stale. So with that, and kind of talking about ventilation, you want to be able to bring in cold or fresh air from the outside and just constantly exchange the air and just take out the stale air and bring in the fresh air from the outside.
Good point. Absolutely. Yep. There's also, just kind of thinking from a homeowner's perspective, there's so many terms out there that we hear and are, I'm sure you hear them kind of thrown around. And sometimes it can get really complicated. So I'm just going to go through a list of terms that you probably have heard about. And then my next question is going to be, can you maybe shed some light on some of these systems for our homeowners in the crowd? So heat pumps, HRVs, what is HVAC? What does that mean? Hot water on demand, electrical, natural gas, wood burning fuel. Oh my gosh, so many terms, right? So maybe shed some light.
I'll go with the fresh air machine because that's the one that clients really want to make sure they have when you're getting to high performance. And that's typically being installed in your mechanic room. The technical term is a HRV, the heat recovery ventilator. Outside of the Rockies, you'd have an ERV, but typically when you're getting that first approach, you're working on your air barrier, the next thing you want to ensure is you've got a nice filter of fresh air, as Utoo alluded to. So that takes care of the first one. The heat pump, I'll just quickly touch on and let the panel carry on, is the heat pump's a great system because it's providing you two things, heating and cooling. As we move towards a holistic approach that Eric said, we also want to make sure we're dealing with resiliency. The fact that we have the heat domes and atmospheric rivers and all the smoky seasons, we want to make sure that we have a building that can manage the different environments we're having outside. So heat pumps are going to provide heating and cooling. They also give you a better return on money because there's a ratio of the energy in versus out. So it's a great system. So heat pumps are coming to the market and seeing more of those installed. as well as when you have the air tightness levels, you're going to have a fresh air machine, which is an HRV.
Yeah, and I'll kind of touch on the on-demand direct hot water tanks. Like you see a lot of right now, it's more so just these big hot water tanks that store and heat water. More and more, we're seeing tankless on-demand water heaters. So that's not. It's basically, as the name says, it's on demand. So as needed, it's bringing in the water or heating up the water, providing that heat to your home. And I guess as you want to spend more and more allocation to your actual livable spaces, these units are a lot smaller than what your regular hot water tanks would be like. So that's allowing you to have a smaller kind of mechanical room, right? Depending obviously on your systems, but space more and more is becoming more and more valuable in a home, especially with how expensive houses are getting these days, right? So do you want to maximize the amount of space that you have?
I guess I'll also touch on what Shaun was saying with the hot water tanks and the boilers. Like in Vancouver, at least, they are trying to phase out gas, the use of gas because of carbon footprint. So, in the 80s and the 90s, the most popular thing is radiant heat, right, that you see in Vancouver special homes. That's going to be fading away. You can still get radiant heat through an electric boiler, but it's expensive. So more and more, you're going to be seeing the heat pump system, which is what we touched on. And then even hot water tanks. When you get to passive level, now you're talking about a heat pump-driven hot water tank because it's just so much more efficient. So you'll kind of hear those terms being bounced around. Was there any other terms that you need clarified?
I think we touched on all of them, but I'm going to ask a question we get asked all the time as designers, and I'm sure you might be wondering that today too. So with Vancouver's trend of going away from gas, does that mean you can't have gas fireplaces anymore? And does that mean that you cannot have gas stoves anymore? Is that what that means?
Yeah, it's a calculation that they're doing right now. It's a greenhouse gas calculation. And they're not saying you can't have gas stoves. They're just saying do the math on your gas appliances, gas-powered appliances, and it can't exceed this number. And they're going to be tightening that more and more. The goal for them is no gas eventually. So yeah, right now, yes, if fireplace is the only thing you have, that might still be possible. Depends on the size of the house and all that. But eventually, it might not be.
Yeah, and so when it comes to the fireplaces, we're all cave people. We love the feel and the atmosphere of having a fireplace. But in these tighter homes, we don't need the extra heat. And so the question is like, what do we do for us cave people that still like to see, the fire? And so there's, different devices out there, or we're just eliminating it from our homes entirely. When it comes to the cooktops, we're seeing now more induction cooktops being in place. So we're getting rid of the extra gas because our homes are tighter. And so we want to be really focused on ensuring that our indoor air quality is the highest it could be. So you're seeing a trend not only because of high performance, but also in health of how some of these items are being removed for our homes and different ones being brought in.
Yeah, there's just so much to it, right? I actually heard this story once. We don't need to deep dive into this. Oh, and it was actually a high-performance home that literally you could heat the whole house with a hairdryer if you wanted to. Like, that's the level of performance that we're talking here from energy efficiency.
Yeah, like the whole point of a high-performance home is to reduce the heating load that you need, right? So, I mean, as you get to more and more high level design, you're taking into account all the different mechanical or I guess equipment systems that are being used in the house. So range, washer, dryer, things like that. Like all those things are being taken into account once you get to the higher kind of levels of performance design.
So that hair dryer is now being replaced by heat pump because in our homes, yes, the hair dryer is giving us heat, but we need cooling. And so the heat pump's able to give us both the heating and cooling. So yeah, the term on the hair dryer, we'll just put a sticker on that, on the heat pump that, that's what's been changed to.
Awesome. Well, and I think this all sounds really great. And, obviously high performance homes, they consume less energy, fresh air, you have consistent room temperature, like the list goes on, the benefits. Often we want to talk about cost. So, that's a tricky question because there's so many different factors. Do you guys want to speak to, the costs of a high performance home and it offsets the operational costs versus the upfront capital costs? Just tell them about that.
Yeah, I think like the first thing to look at is how long are you planning on living in your home, right? And how much do you value your comfort? Like how much money would you put on comfort? So we're seeing a lot more multi-generational living now more than ever. So these houses are being passed down from generation to generation, and you want this house to be able to perform throughout these generations, right? So yeah, you do kind of have that upfront cost of higher performance, but you kind of just have to take a look at the bigger picture over the entire kind of span of living in this house.
The other thing I would also add on cost is it also depends where you're coming from. So if you're building let's say a entry-level home, you're spending X amount of dollars and the specs are basic. But if you're building a high-end home with high-end specs already, the marginal jump isn't that much more. Like I did a house with Shaun, and it was in River Road, and we did a whole bunch of high-performance stuff to get them to a certain level, increasing air barrier, insulation, windows, all of that stuff. But as a total upgrade of the construction costs, we're only about 5 or 8%. But that's because they're spending around 600 to start with, 600 square feet, right? So if you're spending 300 or 400, well, now there's much more jump to it. So that's another factor you have to consider when you're building the whole.
And just to touch on the builders aspect is, for us is, we have been building high performance for a while, so we understand what it takes. And so the industry now, some of the current costs, and this is why we have the step code, we have this kind of 15-year gradual, is for the industry to grow and learn. And so our good friend Gord Cook out of Ontario goes to the dump tax. And so sometimes this increase that you're seeing is the industry learning how to get better, improve, be able to install their air barriers properly, include, higher performing windows and systems. So there's a little bit of that. And this is why if you're looking at renovating a building, make sure that your team is experienced, because with that knowledge that they've already learned, they'll be able to reduce costs. And then there's also as construction costs, we look at about a 2% higher for the high performance, but that's going to be traded off with the lower energy bills that clients get. So again, at the end of the month, the dollars that your clients or homeowners are putting out should be on par with the higher mortgage and lesser energy bills. And until we work on the dump tax, there's going to be a bit of an issue of when that ROI is going to be put through. But we're getting there. By 2032, this extra cost will be less of a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Can you just tell us what happens in 2032?
Sorry, again, step code thinking of where we're at. So we first kind of spoke about energy step code. So currently in May of this year, we're going to be at step code level 3. And that means that from the original homes or code that we had, we'll be at 40% or 50% more energy efficient than what we were currently doing. And then by 2032, you'll see about an 80 to 90% improvement of the efficiency of homes. So we're slowly working way up there to ensure that the industry is able to grow and change and adapt as we move to high-performing homes.
And it will be mandated by government as well. So you would need to, it would be mandatory to build to step 5. Hence another reason to invest in that now, because 2032 is just around the corner. Yeah. All right. So we talked about a lot of different systems, and obviously as a homeowners, sometimes, like I mentioned before, it can be very confusing and complicated. So maybe let's just wrap up this session with talking about, can you guys share some tips in terms of what's the best next steps or some of the initial steps that a homeowner can take to make sure they're making the proper decision as it relates to the mechanics of a high-performance home?
Yeah. I think I'll emphasize Shaun's point is if you are thinking about designing and building a high-performance home, the first step I would say is pick the right team. And that's design, consultant, and build. Because otherwise, you're paying for that learning tax, the dump tax that Shaun talks about. So find one, interview them well, talk to their clients, look at the past projects, make sure they've done high performance before so that you have a trusted team on your side. And that's going to go a long way.
And so kind of just continuing on having the right team, it's bringing in everybody, right? So that's coming from a design standpoint. You want to bring in like contractors and stuff early on too, so that they can bring their expertise and their ideas and things like that from a builder's standpoint. So you want to have you want to have a few different perspectives out there to get an overall idea of how you're going to move forward.
Yeah, and my takeaway for you is just make sure your goals, the wants and the needs, are clearly defined before you even get to the team. Because once you have a team on board, we're individuals that want to be really efficient with our time and our efforts and how we work, and we want to really be able to provide you with as much resource as possible. But that means that homeowners need to come to the plate with the right vision. And so, keep working on your Pinterest collages and all those kinds of things so that we understand what your vision is. And as builders, we want to be included in those earlier conversations. The integrated design planning is a term that is another one to throw out there today, where we want to be involved in providing our knowledge and our expertise of how to get you high performance to ensure that the designs that are being put forth get to the end goal.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. At this point, we're just going to turn the mic over to you guys. So, does anybody have any questions for the panel today? Great. And Snowly's just going to help us with the mic.
Hi. Yeah, can you comment on, the radiant enforced system just be very popular, and now with the city, of course, now banning the use of gas to heat up the boiler. Can you comment on whether, like in a high efficiency home, that has role to play? And if not, then what are the current systems that you would recommend? And then how does that compare with sort of the comfort level of a home?
I'll take that one. So the radiant heat system, it doesn't work too well with high performance because what happens is it's very slow to react. So if your wall system, your roof, your entire envelope is performing well, you actually don't lose too much heat and you don't gain too much heat. Your temperature inside the house doesn't fluctuate that much. So that means that actually you can be setting your heat to a minimal and you won't feel that difference. The thing that people like about radiant heat is the warmth to the foot, to the touch, right? And there's other systems out there. New Heat has been doing electric radiant heat forever. There's many other brands now. So you can still do that in the cold tile floors. And it doesn't take too much energy because now you're just talking about one small area. I myself like to do New Heat for that creature comfort, plus the heat pump system tied in. And that together as a combination is a great system. Do you guys have any other items?
We're doing the same thing too, as Eric said. We're doing the same thing too. And again, mainly because they're so well performing that you only really need heating or cooling in the real extremes. But for the most of the year, you're enjoying, and you can all indicate what your temperature is. But typically, most people like between 19 and 22 degrees Celsius, and the envelope allows you to enjoy that comfort. And so you're not needing that system that has a lot of moving parts and is it's quite expensive to install. And now we're able to use that budget line item for different items in the project. So I'm putting in better windows, better heat pumps. We're able to kind of move the budget from a radiant heating floor system to some different mechanical systems and get better benefits from it. Yes. Yeah, it is. And we're seeing it all the time. So like in our mechanical budgets, for example, first line item is the air barrier. Second was the heat pump. Third is electric, floor heat for the bathroom. So when you wake up in the morning, when you are jumping from wood floors to tile and having that shock of texture or temperature difference, that's where we're typically seeing our mechanical systems.
Great question. Thank you.
Maybe I'll add one more to that. So the difference before why we want that radiant heat is because the tile feels cold. That's because our ambient air is cold. But if we're controlling it, you actually won't notice that much of a difference. So if you are turning on electric heat under the tile, it's more just for that sense of warmth. The tile's not cold in reality because your temperature is not fluctuating anymore. And that's something that people aren't understanding because they're used to the old system.
Great point. Thanks, Eric. Did we have any other questions? We have another one back there. Thank you.
You don't see a lot of solar going in Vancouver. So what's your thoughts on solar?
Let's copy.
Yeah, so with the step code, the goal is to reach net zero ready homes, right? So net zero ready, meaning that the next step beyond that to get to net zero is solar energy, right? Bringing in your own energy. right? So that is something we're progressing towards, and you'll start to see it more and more as we get more of these higher performing homes coming up.
Just in the marketplace, because BC is so lucky to have renewable energy and having 98% of our power being, you won't see it as much as you will in other parts of the country that has dirty energy sources. So when you're looking about like the conversation we have got, because we're talking about high performance is embodied carbon, but after concrete, solar panels actually have that second highest embodied carbon. So you may not see them as kind of fruitful as you would say if you're in California or other places. But you will see solar panels continuing to grow across Canada on the roofs where we don't have such a clean energy grid. We're kind of lucky here in Vancouver, and people will continue to do it for different reasons, but it's not as critical. The biggest critical point is reducing our energy loads of our building to then be able to, enjoy the renewable energy that we have as a province.
And maybe I'll add to that. It's very much market driven right now. In BC, we have low energy costs. We don't have as much sun compared to Nevada or LA, right? They have high energy costs, a lot of sun. So that's what's driving down south. Over here, the government is putting incentives and all that stuff to bring in solar. But I think as solar panel technology costs come down and such, and the city mandates us to do it, you're going to see more and more of it.
Great question. Thank you. We probably have time for one more question. No? Okay. We were very, very thorough. Great. Well, on behalf of the entire panel, thank you so much for joining us today. And I just want to give another shout out to the panel. We have Shaun with Clay Construction, Utoo with Jamie Banfield Design, and Eric with VictorEric Design. So, and these gentlemen also have their respective booths within this hall. So feel free to go and chat with them further. We're always happy to take questions. Just a few housekeeping items. Sonali is holding this beautiful contact book, which lists all of the members of HAVAN, Home Builders Association Vancouver. So it's a really great starting point if you're looking for any reputable builders, designers, consultants. Are all in that book, which is great. The second thing I also want to point out, which is also in those beautiful little tote bags that everybody got coming in, you'll see this little flyer. It just talks about HAVAN's podcast. It's a great resource that's free and it's really popular. It has over 12,000 downloads, which I found out today. It's called Measure Twice, Cut Once. So just check that out as another resource. Last but not least, right when you're walking in, there's a contest to win the Cuisinart food processor. So make sure you put your name in that draw, and you might just be the proud owner of a new food processor. So thank you so much again for joining us today. Hopefully the information we presented brings you just one step closer to your amazing finished project. And enjoy the rest of the show and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.